we're going to ask a few questions. So Justin has an idea, and I have an idea about what you all already know. I'd like everybody in the room to raise their hand, and people on Zoom can raise their hand too. And Alan, who's the right-hand person in this meeting, he's watching on the Zoom, so he should be able to communicate how many people raise their hands on Zoom. So how many people in this room have heard of real ear measurement? And it's called REM. Okay, so 4 of you. So that's not very many. And 2 in Zoom. 3 in Zoom. Okay, so 4, that's 7, and we have about, I think, a total of maybe 30 some people today. So if you don't know what REM is, your healthcare professional probably hasn't done it, but does REM? Is there anybody in this room whose healthcare professional performs real ear measurement? Okay, Alan, was anybody on Zoom? Oh, okay, so maybe we have 2 people on Zoom. No one in the room here had their hearing healthcare professional perform real ear measurement. Oh, 1 person changed their mind. Okay, so the second question was, does your professional do REM? And the last question was it performed on your devices? And so those are really close together, because if the provider usually does REM, then they probably did it to your devices. So does anybody know if REM was performed on their device, their hearing device? 1. Okay. Thank you very much. So now we're going to get to our presentation today, and the presentation is going to be predominantly about real ear measurement, which is the gold standard for hearing aid fitting. In my opinion, if you are not having REM performed on your hearing instruments, you're not getting good service. You're not getting the service that you should have, and you should demand it. Justin Stack owns the Listening Stack Hearing Aid Centers and TLS Sound Labs. And I think I have this, you make custom ear molds, correct? Yes. And he has 17 years experience fitting people with very complex hearing issues. And he recently just opened up an extension of his business in Pleasant Hill. And I would like to now introduce Justin. And I'm going to change PowerPoint presentations. And so we're going to move to Justin's presentation.
Good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing? Awesome. Just move this out of the way. Okay. So, as you know, I'm here to talk about REM. A little intro about myself. I have 3 hearing aid centers, 2 of them in Santa Cruz, or 1 in Wattsville, 1 in Santa Cruz, and then 1 in Pleasant Hill. And just a slight modification, we actually didn't open it brand new. It's an established office that has been there for about 25, 30 years. It was known as Advanced Hearing Aid Center by Yolanda Kananen. Some of you may know her if you're clients of that office. And if you're not, that's okay. We'll still see you if you want to come in. Tony Allred is my clinic manager there. So if you're going to the Pleasant Hill office, which I'm assuming you are, if you ever make an appointment, that's who you'll be seeing. On occasion, I'll be up there, of course, as well. Okay, and a quick blurb about our lab, TLS Sound Labs. So that is a business-to-business company. We resell to hearing aid centers in Walnut Creek and around the country. We have hundreds of providers that provide that product. So there's a good chance that if you had a custom ear mold or a custom earplug for swimming or sleep or for hearing aid use, that you got it from our lab just through your audiologist or hospital. We do a lot of resale business with that. Okay, so I do apologize. This slideshow is set up for a lot of basic stuff around hearing loss, which most of you probably already know. So I'm going to zoom through a few of these slides to get to the real ear measurement section. I will stop here though, just because this is a good picture to show the ear canal. Now, if you look where it says outer ear, basically in the outer ear section, that's where the hearing aid goes. When you're putting in a behind the ear hearing aid or a in the canal hearing aid, really any style other than like cochlear implants or so forth, you're going to be placing it roughly in that outer ear. When we do real ear measurement, if you look at the, so let's see here, where that eardrum is, that purple eardrum, the probe tube that measures the pressure levels or does the measurement for REM is going to sit about 5 to 6 millimeters away from your eardrum. So sometimes actually when we're inserting the probe tube, which is kind of like a few hairs strung together, it's a very thin tube, we'll actually touch the eardrum and you'll feel it or you'll hear it. Usually hurt, but it can get sensitive. But that's how close we're getting to your eardrum. The hearing aid will sit in the outer ear, and we'll go into a little bit more description in just a little bit. I'm assuming most of you, if you've worn hearing aids, you have had a hearing test. Here we go. Okay. So what is real ear measurement? You probably have a little idea of what it is, but essentially what it is a way to calibrate hearing aids a lot more accurately than what the manufacturers of the hearing aids can do all by themselves. It essentially measures the volume or the sound pressure levels in your ear canal in real time with all the factors of the volume of your ear canal, the texture of your eardrum, whether it's tight or loose. It does get looser as you get older, just like skin gets wrinkles. Other membranes in your body do the same thing, and the eardrum is no different. You can see in the picture here, that little tube going into the ear, that's the measurement tube. This machine that's in this picture is a little outdated. Some are real ear measurement machines still use things like this. Some are a little more updated, like what I have here on the desk, if you want to check that out after the presentation. But essentially, what this does, or what this measurement does, is it takes everything into account, not just one or two factors, but it takes into account the hearing loss that you have. Those are little probe tubes, pretty basic. Real ear machines have been around for 40, 50 years. This is a very common practice in terms of the audiology industry. And it's probably the least practice measurement. By show of hands, 4 people have had it done. One person currently has had it done out of, 30 people and a few online. That's dismal. It should be 95% of you. Virtually every single one in this room should have had real measurement done. Now, in my experience, I've been doing this for 17 years. I've run multiple offices for large companies and my own company. And over those 17 years, talking to colleagues, by the way, I did not always do real ear measurement. I used to be one of the guys that kind of blew it off as a waste of time. But that changed, obviously, and now we always do it. There are a few times that we will not. But thank you. The reason why I can speculate, the reason why that offices don't do it is mainly revolving around laziness. And that is a bold claim, but that is the truth. Every audiologist, every hearing aid specialist is capable of doing it. It's not a difficult test. It doesn't take that much time. But for some reason, these offices and these clinicians and audiologists don't take the time to do it. There is financial barrier The machines are expensive, but everything in this industry is expensive. If you're an audiologist or a hearing aid center, every piece of equipment is $5,000 to $10,000. It's just that's what it costs. Audiometers, real ear measurement machines, sound booths. Doesn't matter what it is, it's $5,000 to $10,000. So, and these machines last for 20 years, 30 years. The office that we took over in Pleasant Hill had a real ear machine from the 90s. Still works, still being calibrated. A little bit outdated and hadn't been used for 15 years, but it was there. It's a really cool machine, actually, too. So, this is something that your clinic should be able to do. Most clinics do actually have real ear machines, they just get mothballed. Again, I don't know why. The only explanation I can say is the double-edged sword of knowledge is that you get blind sides to, or you get blind spots to, different new techniques or different ways of doing, you get into a rut for lack of a better term. And I think when clinics have been operating for 15, 20 years and they haven't been taught, new specialists or new audiologists come in, they haven't been taught to do these things, they just don't really do the outreach to find out how to do them. So best guess is they're just lazy or they've never been pushed to do the test, or another common issue is that they may not have the time on that particular visit. So not really sure, but just like Ann was saying, you should require your office to do it. And if they can't do it, then you should maybe think about going to a different office that can do it and that will do it. Okay. All right, there we go. Why is it needed? All these manufacturers have what's called first fit settings in the hearing aids, meaning that they do tens of millions of dollars of research every year to figure out the best way to quickly fit hearing loss individuals. There's a lot of money in this industry worldwide. It's a hugely competitive industry. And these fitting formulas are really good, but they're really good at one thing. They're really good at the first 2 to 3 weeks of your listening experience. That's it. Anything past that, you're guessing, you're stabbing in the dark. So basically, the reason this is needed is when you come in for a new fitting of a new hearing aid, you get a hearing test, you've ordered your hearing aids, now you're coming in to pick it up. First fit settings are perfect for that. We need to get our clients adjusted and calibrated to the new hearing aids. We need to have them be familiar with how these new hearing aids sound. And that's really what it's designed for. But again, backing up and going back to why offices don't do it, for some reason, if you do a first fitting and the client comes back with relatively good results, they're liking the hearing aids, a lot of specialists or audiologists will assume, great, I don't need to do real ear. They're having a good response. We'll just tweak the settings and go on, with just guessing essentially. And the issue with that is that most people are not very confrontational. You are not hearing loss professionals. Your hearing loss, your experience with hearing loss, because you have it, but you don't know necessarily the technical side. That's my job. And whoever you're going to, that's their job. And so for a client to articulate properly what's working and not working, that's a bias. We're not going to get objective data out of that. And that's okay. We want that information. It is important to get your bias. It is important to understand what you like and what you don't like. But it's equally, arguably more important to verify what the hearing aid's actually doing so we can take those two bits of information, the consumer or the client's preferences and likes and dislikes, as well as the objective data from real ear measurement to get the overall picture or get the overall results a lot better. As said here, every ear canal is a fingerprint. The shape, the wax in your ear, the texture of your eardrum, the hairs, all of that does matter for the acoustics. In the same way that the acoustics in this hall matter. If we empty this hall, it will sound different than if it's full. That's acoustics, the way sound moves around in a space, basically is what it is. Your ear canal is a mini chamber. It's a mini sound chamber. And so when we take into account these different types of volumes and spaces, we get different results. Okay, what's involved? This is just kind of basic. We're going to get into some good diagrams here in a second showing how real ear actually works. But what's basically involved is it's about a 20-30 minute test. It doesn't take too long. Essentially, the specialist or the audiologist will take a look inside your ear canal, find out if there's any wax, do just a basic look in there. Then they'll insert a probe tube. Tickles, feels like a little hair going down to your ear canal. I have all the stuff up here, so at the end of the presentation, if you're curious what some of this stuff looks like, feel free to come up and I'll explain. That tube goes very close to the ear canal, or I'm sorry, the eardrum. Then the hearing aids will be connected to the software. Then they'll be put in your ears. And then the specialist or audiologist will run the test and give you some instructions. From start to finish, it's 20 to 30 minutes tops. It can take a little longer if there's a lot of difficulty going on or something like that. But this can be done in typically a half an hour appointment. Like I said, very easy for companies or offices to perform this test in their normal schedules. All righty. Good. I think the captions will be out of the way on this one. That's great. Okay. So this is basically the starting of a real ear measurement. The green line with the X's, that's going to be the target. Okay, that's your hearing loss. So whatever your hearing loss is, that's going to represent it. So in this case, for this client, this person, this is a common hearing loss, probably the most common. It's called a high frequency ski slope hearing loss. 60% of clients out there have some variation of this, maybe higher than that. So it's very, very common. The red and the blue line at the bottom, don't worry about that. That's just how this software displays some other things. Okay, so this first test, those arrows are pointing to the actual measurement performed. This first test essentially shows the natural resonance of the ear canal. So this is with no hearing aid, nothing in the ear, just the test being performed to measure how the hearing or how the individual ears interact with sound. You can see on the right ear, it has kind of like an up and a down, and on the left ear, it doesn't. That's a left ear. This is actually my ear. My left ear resonates sound differently than my right ear. Now, I noticed that in real time. I do not have a hearing loss. This is kind of a dummy model set up for this presentation and made to kind of, emphasize how this whole test works. But this is real data. My right ear is more sensitive to high frequencies than my left ear. That's what that second little hump is. If you see right past the arrow, there is, let's see, is this? Yeah, right here. That right there, that's over or under emphasis. This would be under emphasis of certain frequencies. And this is just how my ear interacts with sound. Okay. Now, when we're fitting, this slide is unrelated to the last. This is the actual fitting software of one of the hearing aids. This particular one is Starkey. We do fit, service, and sell all brands, so we're very experienced in all the different companies. But this particular fitting software is Starkey. You have the right ear and the left ear. The bold lines, those are the settings put into the hearing aid. The little thin lines that are kind of underneath the bold, those are the factory targets. So those thin lines are considered by the factory your hearing loss target. That's what we're trying to match with the hearing aids. That's the factory's assumption of what will be needed for this individual's hearing loss to fit their hearing properly. No acoustic data, just the raw settings for the hearing aid to properly amplify. I just want you to remember where those bold lines are compared to the thin non-bold lines of the same color. So there's a green in the middle, a blue at the bottom, and a black on top. When we run real ear at those settings, this is the result you get. So those settings were supposed to be perfect, theoretically perfect. Perfect would have meant that green squiggly line, the measurement line, would match the line, the green line with X's on it. That's the target. Now you can see in both ears, we're nowhere close to that. The right ear is well below in every area. The left ear actually goes above target, which it shouldn't have, but it did, and then below target in different areas. So this is a great representation of when the company or the manufacturer of the brand that you have guesses, the reality of that guess is inaccurate. By the way, everyone knows this. This is no secret here. Every manufacturer understands this. Every single one recommends real ear on every single fitting, period. So, and again, I've been on the other side of this conversation. I've been in your seat attending seminars, professional seminars for my continuing education. I've talked to many colleagues. And roughly 10 years ago is when we started doing real ear. Out of my 17 years, I didn't do it for roughly 7 years. Part of that was half of that time I was working for my brother's company. He did have real ear machines in every single office. No one used them ever. He knew how to use them. At that time, the testing was more cumbersome. And for a long time, as people, speakers at the front of the room were encouraging all of us to do real ear, as I am kind of encouraging your specialists through you to do, I kind of said, I don't need that. I can do it. My clients are happy. Now, that's a half truth. My clients were happy, but being happy with me and being content is different than getting great results. And that's what happens a lot of times, I find. If the office doesn't do it or want to do it, but you like going to the office and you feel like they listen to you and address your needs, most laymen or women are not going to complain. They don't know about this test. They don't understand, the whole industry in a nutshell. So they're not going to really advocate for themselves. This is part of the reason it gets bypassed. It's kind of, like I said, whether it's the laziness or, not trained or whatnot, it's that mixed with the clients just not having all the information at their fingertips. Even though a lot of this stuff is online, our clientels are seniors and not everyone is going onto the internet every day and researching and doing all this stuff for themselves. And so it kind of gets lost in time a little bit. Okay. So on this test, again, this is the manufactured recommended settings, and it is well below target. Now, our first adjustment. This is where the specialist or the audiologist is going to try to match the deficient areas up. So raise the areas that are too low and reduce the areas that are too high. That's from this previous slide. Okay. So now we're reacting to this. And these are the adjustments we're going to do first. Notice how much higher the bold lines are from the thin lines of their corresponding color. You have the dark green way above the light green, and so on and so forth. Now, also in the left ear, if you notice those two arrows, you can see right to the right of the arrow, right here, there's a big dip right there. That dip is in response to this spike. Okay, so we do this measurement and we test again. And this is what we found. So even after all that huge adjustment, the right ear is still way off of target. The left ear is getting close. The left ear we're getting lucky on. Coincidentally, the left ear is a little easier in this case. Now you can see I overdid it on the purple line in the left ear. Right over here, we went above target, even though we reduced some of those areas. It's hearing loss and acoustics are not simple. So basically what happened here is we went above target and we're still below target. And we're getting close on the right ear. And now we make some adjustments. So this adjustment, the third adjustment, this is in response to this. So we're going to be lowering some of this stuff over here in the purple And we're still going to be raising this as well as anything else that's below target. So we do this adjustment. Again, notice how far away those bold lines are from the thin lines. Now we're at target. Not to toot my own horn, but I've become really good at real ear. In fact, I can estimate real ear for a lot of clients because most of the time, the measurements you're seeing here, a lot of the time apply to a lot of different areas. And that's because hearing aids nowadays emphasize certain things and reduce other things based on preference. People don't like to hear background noise. People don't like to hear shrill sounds, correct? No one likes a super shrill sound or a ringing in their ear. And so a lot of those first fit formulas by the manufacturer are set up for comfort. And that's why they're great for the first fitting. That's why they're great for the first few weeks. It's so you can get comfortable. It's so you can ease into it. After a few weeks, as most of you probably know, you go back for your checkup, and that kind of honeymoon period of the hearing aid sounding good in the first few days is gone. And now you're left with just the results, and typically you're not hearing very well. This is where real ear really starts to matter. Adjusting those low frequencies right in this area, matching those to target, and then balancing the high frequencies like we did over here. So the most current line is this kind of fluorescent green line that is matching the X's. And you can see it's a little underlaid here, a little bit over there, but that's not a big deal. A little bit under, a little bit over. We're basically on target right now. I would stop the test for this individual at this point. Okay. So again, this is the setting we're left with. And you can see how far away from target this is. So for all those people, except for the one that raised her hand, that's going to be true for most of you. Okay. Until you have this measurement done, you are 40, 50% away from what you actually should have. Now, that doesn't mean more volume. That doesn't mean more of the negative that you don't like. So what I mean is a lot of times people come in and say, no, I don't want you to turn it up because it's already too loud. The reality is it's usually too loud in one area, one section of sound, and it's usually not loud enough in everywhere else. And this kind of goes back to that original slide. One area was above target, even though it said it was below, and the rest was below, even though it said it was at target. Okay. So what that means basically is everyone in here has improperly fit hearing aids on an assumption, of course. I'm just guessing. Okay. Any questions so far? No? Yeah.
Does Medicare pay for this test?
Yes, they do. Yeah. So typically, so there are two types of fitting programs or ways to offer service in the hearing aid industry. You can do a la carte, which is what most audiologists and hospital related clinics will do. And you can do bundled pricing. That's what my clinic and a lot of hearing aid centers will do. Bundled pricing means you buy the hearing aids at whatever price they cost, and they include some sort of servicing plan. Could be 3 years, could be 5 years, could be lifetime. It varies from clinic to clinic. In that plan, there is no billing because there is no charge. It's included typically, unless you have the rare office that does like a hybrid where they bundle for a certain amount of time and then they charge. But most offices will either do one or the other. All of my clinics are bundle pricing. So what that means is when you buy hearing aids from us, you get lifetime servicing. That includes all the cleanings, that includes testing, adjusting, measurement. Anything associated with the labor or helping you hear better is going to be covered for life of the hearing aid. Now, the average life of hearing aids is about 5.6 years. So if you're planning and budgeting on something like that, what we're planning for with our profits and how we run our business is that you're likely to recycle your, new purchase every 5 to 6 years. And that's a national statistic. It's rock solid. It's been that way for 30 years. Yeah.
Oh, I've got the,
She has
I'd
the
like to
fancy mic.
clarify something.
Yeah.
Medicare doesn't cover hearing aids,
They do not cover hearing aids, yes.
right?
But
And
they
so
do.
that was your question, right? You said, does Medicare cover this? So,
Yeah, the test.
well, Medicare doesn't cover hearing aids.
But they do cover the test. So how Medicare billing works is durable medical equipment is what a hearing aid is. It's kind of a hybrid between a retail product and a medical product. It's FDA regulated, so on and so forth. Medicare does not pay for a lot of DME. So wheelchairs sometimes are paid for, walkers, things like that, depending on the situation. But there's a lot of medical equipment that's not covered. Glasses aren't covered, a lot of different things. Hearing aids are not covered, but most or all of the service around hearing aids is covered. And the reason why is that's not a service is different than a product. So, for example, if you buy hearing aids and they cost you $5,000 and you're on an a la carte plan, so you buy the hearing aids, the audiologist includes 1 year of servicing or 6 visits. That's a really common plan that's offered. So you buy them and then you get some sort of basic servicing for about a year. Every time, and then you exit that year. So on month 13 and every visit past that or every month past that, your audiologist is going to bill your Medicare for every visit. Cleanings are $25. You might not get the bill, Medicare does. Real ear measurements usually around $150 to $350 just because of the time associated and the special equipment. Hearing testing is $150. So there are a lot of different services that you may never see the bill for, but Medicare is. And that's in the a la carte system. Yeah. Sure.
Oh, Carol, do you have a question?
Yeah. Ironically, I got new hearing aids yesterday, and I was watching the REM test, the screen, and wish I had had this information earlier, but I was focusing on the lines between those two charts, the lines going up and down. And I wonder if that's the audiologist making the adjustments, if that's what those
Are you
little
talking about
blocks
these?
were.
Are you talking about these vertical lines right here?
No, go right in between the two charts. You've got the left ear and the right ear, and there's a space between them. In those space between them, there were these sort of scales that went up and down. When you say that they're being adjusted, how are they adjusted? Is that what's adjusting them? The motions in between the two graphs?
So I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're asking. Are you talking about this screen right here or this
What
one?
I could see when the real ear measurement was being done was just what you show there, the right ear and the left ear and those graphs.
Okay.
Right between them is sort of a blank column. Right now you've got some printing in there, but when the printing wasn't on, there were bars that went up and down. What is done to adjust those? You say that the audiologist then adjusts them to bring the two graphs into compliance with each other. But how is it adjusted?
Well, the basic answer is it doesn't matter because that's something that the audiologist and the hearing aid center will do through their fitting software. But in all softwares, the audiologist or the hearing aid specialist is going to have different ways to turn the hearing aids up and down at different channels. Most hearing aids nowadays have 12 channels. So if you're familiar with a stereo and you have a bass channel and a treble channel that you can independently turn the bass up or down and the treble up or down, that's considered 2 channels, bass, treble. When you have 10 channels and you have 5 fingers that you can individually raise and lower, this became kind of popular in the 70s with hi-fi from Japan, where you had a lot of stereos coming out with equalizers. Okay. Hearing aids basically have equalizers built into them. So entry-level hearing aids might have 10 or 12 channels. Mid-level hearing aids have 16 to 20 channels, and higher-end hearing aids or top of line will have 24 to 50 channels. That gives us, similar to what you're asking actually here. So if you look at these vertical lines and the frequencies at the bottom, 15 or 1.5K, 2K, might be a little hard to see. It's at the very bottom of the screen there, 3K, 4K. Oops. Those are frequencies. And if you think of each one of those being able to be raised or lowered, that would symbolize something similar to a channel. So that's what they're going to be doing. They're going to be raising and lowering different sections in the software. They might show this to you, they might not. And that's why I said it doesn't really matter. It's not something the client would be involved in necessarily, because it's more on the back end or the technical data. But to answer your question a little more directly, sorry if I went off, there are ways in all the softwares to increase and decrease individual sections of sound, which are called channels or bands.
So some of the equipment would be adjusted by that column in the middle, and some would not by just adjusting the frequency down at the bottom.
No, I'm not sure which column in the middle you're referring to.
Well,
Are
if
you
you look,
referring to this right here in the middle?
that's right. Yeah, go up and down on that. Move
Yeah,
your
this has
cursor
not,
up and
this is just,
down.
yeah, this has nothing to do with the adjustments. This is just a
Oh,
visual representation. Yeah.
then in the middle of that column was a graph, in effect, that a bar graph that would go up and down as though adjustments were being made.
Are you talking about with your fitting from yesterday?
Yes,
Gotcha. Well, I don't know what hearing aids you have and what software they're using. So
I see.
it's
I
possible
see. The
that,
different ones would,
yeah,
different manufacturers would have different ways of adjusting.
yeah, yeah.
Aha.
You might have been observing it. You might have been observing something else. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks.
okay,
Would you like to hold the rest of the questions till the end?
sure. Yeah, I mean, we're basically at the end of the REM part of it. There are a couple more slides, but we can do that.
I had one question.
One last one.
Yeah. It was about the testing itself.
Sure.
These measurements, 1, 2, 3, are those all done in the same session?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't go away and come back and to get used to the previous
No.
change.
Yeah, so what's going to happen is in that 20, 30-minute time frame, the testing part of it really only takes maybe 10 minutes. It can be longer because, again, like this client, me, it took maybe 10 to 15 minutes total. Other people, I've had to do 20 or 30 of those measurements. And that's just because the shape of their ear canal, the twist and turns, the type of hearing loss they had, the hearing aids that they had, they're all factors on how those tests can go long or short. And with my ear, if I was fitting myself, I do not have hearing loss, just so you're aware of that. But if I were fitting myself, as a specialist, I'd say, yeah, that was nice and easy, nice and clean. It's not always like that. There are typically about 5 to 10 of those lines, squiggly lines on the chart. It's very rarely 2 or 3. It's typically a lot more. But you'll do that in one session. Most of the time at the end of the session, the hearing aids will sound a little too loud. And then we do what is called adjust for comfort. So once we match the curve, once we get that green line to match that other green line, then we can turn everything down symmetrically for comfort. So we get perfect hearing, theoretically perfect, by matching it, and then we adjust it up or down based on what the client prefers. So I'll give you an example. Most of my clients do not wear at perfect real ear target. They wear the hearing aids about 3 levels below that, 3 steps below that. So the curve is the same. We're still matching the hearing loss. We're still matching the resonance of the ear canal, but the volume has just been turned down a little, so it's not so obnoxious. Okay. You will still get great results because you're getting the mixture of that comfort plus the accurate results of your ear canal resonance. Good. Oh, one more.
Thanks. I think I have two questions. One of them is rather basic. I don't understand what it is that you measure when you take into account the ear canal. I mean, when a sound comes in and you raise your finger, you hear it, or if you put it down, if you don't hear it, or you say yes, or push a button, whatever. So when you have a hearing test, and also before and after the ear hearing aid, you do the same thing. So the ear canal actually is neutralized in that process, I think, because it's the same for both. The second question I have before I forget it is, how do you deal with phase? You'll have different phase with processed and unprocessed sounds in terms of the incoming ear, and that can really create distortion and intelligibility issues.
Well, phase is not really an issue with hearing aid fitting. I've never heard that brought up a single time in 17 years. So what your phase really has to do with the amplification, but that would be if multiple factors were involved, meaning that if you had 2 or 3 hearing aids in the same ear, you would run into phase issues of each of those hearing aids interacting with the ear differently. But when you have natural sound coming in combined with electronic sound, it's the same thing that's happening right here with this microphone and my voice. You have digital sound going through speakers, hitting your eardrums, and acoustic sound coming from my mouth. Okay, you don't have phase cancellation in this scenario because you're not really competing. So phase is not an issue, first of all.
Delay. There's a delay in the sound, the natural sound and the processed sound. The same in the hearing aid. There's a delay between the ambient sound and the hearing aid sound, and that's a phase difference.
It's 4 milliseconds, and your brain will take care of that within 3 to 5 days. So basically, that's how your brain interacts with adaptation. So the adaptation, everyone should know this. When you first wear hearing aids, they don't sound natural, right? Anyone have a natural sounding hearing aid? Do you hear like you're 20 years old? No. So you have the electronic sound coming in and you have the natural sound coming in. And most people with hearing, well, all people with hearing loss still have natural hearing. When those two sounds get melded together, your brain can detect that, just like it can detect my acoustic voice and my digital voice. I can hear myself through this. But if you do that long enough, your brain will make that normal. It will address the problem for you because that's what it does. It adapts. Adaptation of your brain takes about 40 to 50 hours of usage. Translates to about 3 to 5 days. So after 3 to 5 days of wearing hearing aids, 10 hours a day, your brain's adapted, or mostly adapted. It continues to adapt over 3 to 6 months. So that delay that you're talking about, it does happen, but your brain will erase it after the course of a little bit of time.
Thank you. Perhaps you can answer my simple question after
Sure.
the seminar.
Was the other question about hearing testing or?
I'm sorry. It's really, I just didn't get it when you first said it. You have a hearing test and you have a frequency response. Then you have hearing aid and you test the same frequency response and it adjusts it accordingly. So the ear canal is the same ear canal as before the hearing aid and after the hearing aid. So what difference does it make?
The ear canal is the same. I'm not grasping your question.
So I'm missing the core of your product, and so I apologize for that. But I'm not
okay.
getting it. So maybe I'll get it offline. I'm sorry. I'm proud of you.
That's okay. If you want, we can talk afterwards.
That would be
think it's
good. I
just a
think that I'm maybe asking a question that's so dumb that it doesn't make any sense.
No, I doubt that's the case.
Justin, I'm wondering if this piece that maybe didn't come through was that the inside your ear has acoustics,
Yes.
and the acoustics are different than what every person has unique acoustics.
Yes, exactly.
And so the manufacturers, when they're projecting what this person should hear, isn't taking into the acoustics of what's actually happening in that ear. And
Yes.
that's what real ear measurement does.
Yes, exactly. So what real ear measurement is doing, the technical side of it, is it's measuring sound pressure levels inside your ear canal. Sound is a movement through medium. It's a wave. Okay, if I hit this table, I vibrate it. There's a wave that goes through it, and then that wave penetrates and goes into air, and then you hear the knock. Okay, so when you have a room, which is your ear canal, you have an eardrum at the end of the ear canal. That's the back wall. You have a hearing aid at the front. This space right here, that's what we're measuring. That probe tube kind of lays right in the middle of those two things. Hearing aid here, eardrum here. So when we run the test, we're putting calibrated sounds through the hearing aid system. This actually might answer your question in a roundabout way. What I haven't described is how it's performed, with a speaker and in the room and so forth. So what we do is we put those probe tubes in your ear and we play calibrated sounds. It sounds like gibberish. It's 7 different languages mixed together to hit all the vowels and syllables and peaks and valleys of sound within a 20-second test. Okay, so each test run takes 20 seconds. That comes out of this speaker at a fixed distance that is self-calibrated by the system. So what happens is we hit test, sound is produced here, it goes into your eardrum, and it goes through the hearing aid. It goes to both, right? So acoustically, it goes to the eardrum, and then also it gets picked up by the microphones and then goes to your eardrum. That probe tube measures the offset of those two things. So it's measuring in real time what is its hearing and what your ear canal is getting or what your eardrum is getting. And this is probably done with really complicated math. This test has been around for a long time. They've kind of fine-tuned it over the years. So I don't know how they do it, to be honest, because it's probably proprietary. But that's what's happening. We're picking up the sound of the speaker from multiple microphones, including the hearing aids, including the one in the ear, and including one outside the ear. That's how the machine works, essentially. And then with all that information, we can find out what we are actually hearing and what we're supposed to be hearing, and then relate that to the hearing loss and all the other factors. That a little better address it?
I have a question.
Oh,
So the
we can
green,
talk after.
the solid green line with the dots on it, that's the target hearing.
Yes,
Is that what normal hearing sounds like?
sort of. So when we put in a hearing test, when we put in your hearing test, it's going to show up as that green line. So every different hearing test will look different. That line will change. But that line represents theoretical normal hearing.
So when you say that most people that wear hearing aids want them 2 or 3 steps slower for comfort, how do normal people hear?
Well, because we're born, let's assume you're born with normal hearing. Your brain will make anything normal, right? In things over time, years, decades, your brain is essentially constantly processing information. And that is actually a great segue to the brain health aspect of hearing aids. When you are processing sound up until 50 years old with normal hearing, your brain's activated. It's doing everything normally. It's getting the shuffling slippers on your hardwood floor. It hears the gravel when you walk on it. There are birds singing. All those things come through. We don't really pay attention to them. It's ambient sound. There's a bunch of, I can hear like outside the door, there's a refrigerator compressor going on. I can hear that. Some of you probably can, others probably not. Why does my brain not focus in on that? Because I hear it all the time. Why would it? Why does your brain not annoy you or tell you to take off your glasses? Because the frames are in your field of view 100%. because you see it all the time and it ignores it. I use this analogy all the time. Your nose is in your field of view from birth. It has never not been there. How many people pay attention to their nose in their line of sight? No one. Zero. Until you look at it, you cross your eyes and now you can see it. It's there all the time. So this is an example of how your brain kind of adapts to the visual world and the auditory world. Things that are important, things that can hurt you, a truck barreling down the road, something loud, your brain indicates instantly that's danger. I need to get out. What do I need to do? Things that don't matter, hardwood floor, shuffling slippers, things like that, it doesn't pay attention to. So normal hearing individuals don't really, they're getting so much stimulus on a regular basis, and that's normal for your brain to process because that's typically what happens, that it's not a problem. But as your hearing loss goes down from 50 to 60, it's dropped 10%. Now from 60 to 70, it's another 20%. Now your brain has forgotten those sounds because it hasn't heard them for so long. And when you start wearing hearing aids again, they sound weird, partially because they're being done through an amplifier, which is not natural. It's not your normal body system, but partially because you haven't heard it for 10 years. After the hearing aids are fit properly, after you've worn them for 2 to 4 weeks, your brain will remember. And a lot of those sounds that sound foreign when you start wearing hearing aids will start to sound a little more natural. Once you have real ear done, they'll sound even better. I don't know if that directly answered your question, but let me know. Yeah.
I wanted to make a comment. I see Justin and his partner, Tony, and I have a very good friend who is French. And over the years, my hearing has diminished, and she now has Parkinson's. So Parkinson's has attacked her vocal cords. And so we really don't have much to say to each other. I don't hear her at all, and she has a problem communicating. But Tony and Justin did the real time measurement, and I could actually pick up about every fifth to 10th word now that Annie says, and we can actually communicate. And I was really thrilled with that. It made a big difference for me. And the other thing is walking with my husband and then walking near the freeway. I couldn't hear Sam communicating at all, but now I'm able to pick up our conversation much better. So it's made a difference for me. So
I'll share one little thing about Gay's experience too that's not private. I hope this is okay. But after she left the office, within about 20 minutes, I think you called or emailed or texted us saying that you could hear your husband on the walk. Yeah. Yeah. That gives me goosebumps. That's the best thing you can possibly hope for. So thank you for sharing too. And that doesn't happen with every single client. Real ear is not magic. It's not going to solve every single problem. You still have to have competent people doing more adjustments, but it gets you from 20, 30% benefit to 80, 90% benefit, let's say. And, those are made up numbers, but you're going from a pretty low margin of benefit to a much higher one. And then a little more tuning and tweaking past that is usually all that's needed. You might have to do real ear. So like I said, hearing aids last about 5.5 years. It wouldn't be uncommon to do real ear at probably 1 to 3 times in that 6-year period, because as your hearing loss changes, we have to make adjustments, but the resonance of your ear canal doesn't change too much. So for example, if your hearing loss drops symmetrically 5%, we can just take those real ear results from 2 years ago and raise them 5 to 10%. And that typically will actually fill that gap. And that's an easy, quick way to do an accurate adjustment without actually going through the whole test again. We do that first. After 2 to 4 weeks, we have the client come back. And if they're still not getting results, then we might start doing real ear again to find out if something has changed. Okay, good stuff, guys. So I think we've So a lot of this stuff there are a few questions at the end too that people submitted. So we've gone into the summary. Let's see, listening stack. Yeah. Yeah, I think this stuff we've already talked about. An example of how often we do real ear. I find anecdotally about 5% or less of our clients we get lucky with. The resonance of their ear canal matches the theoretical first fit settings, and they come in for their checkup. Everything's great. Can't think of a single thing. That's when we typically do not do real ear, because if it's not broke, don't fix it type of attitude. The other 95, 96, 97% of our clients, we're doing it on the second checkup or some later checkup, depending on the needs or the situation. All right. So these are some of the submitted questions. Sorry. Okay. Can you show the difference on the graph with the audiologist program with the difference from the real ear measurement and explain what was achieved by it? I think we went over that pretty thoroughly, so we're good there. In conjunction with a real ear measurement, should a hearing test also consist of sentences being read to the person with a noisy background? That's called quick sin. Again, pretty much every office can do this. This is a standard test. This is to determine speech in noise ratios. So when you're speaking and listening to someone in a noisy environment, that is the number one difficulty for hearing loss individuals. Still today, after 70, 80 years of the modern hearing aid industry, speech and noise is the holy grail. You fix that, you dominate essentially with the hearing aids. AI is going to fix that. AI will most likely take my job away in a good way. My job is labor intensive. Hearing aids are expensive because you have to have highly skilled people using a lot of expensive equipment with experience, take a lot of time with individuals. That's part of the reason. Most of the cost of your hearing aid is the labor. It's not the hearing aid itself. And that's why you can go online and you can find, if I quote you $5,000 for a set of hearing aids, you can go online and find those for $3,500. And it looks like we're ripping you off. Oh, this guy's, overcharging by, 30%. Well, I can sell you the hearing aids for $35 with no service. Great. Here's your useless hearing aid. It doesn't work unless it's adjusted. So if you buy hearing aids online or you get, I won't say tricked, but manipulated into thinking that you're getting pound for pound, you might get the exact same equipment. But if you don't have local service, you can't do real ear measurement. You can't do brick and mortar kind of face-to-face fittings. Most states require that. This is a medical device. Over-the-counter hearing aids, $500 to $1,000 you can buy online. Those are not prescription hearing aids. Those are not fit by professionals. So when you see hearing aids advertised, you guys are all, you've been around longer than I have. You've all consumed products. You know how this world works. You get what you pay for. If you try to get something that's really expensive and it's too cheap, there's a problem. Doesn't mean they're selling you something bad, but they're not telling you the whole story. And in the hearing aid world, anything online related can't really work by definition, not only because you can't do real ear measurement, but you can't really get the service that you most likely need. Most clients need a little bit of hand holding. They need to be shown how to, clean hearing aids and change wax guards. A lot of people don't even know what they want to hear or don't want to hear. They need to be kind of talked to and we need to kind of dig around and figure out what the real reason that they're in our office for. Is it because they're hearing screechy sounds, or is it because their granddaughter is screechy and they need the hearing aids to be adapted, right? Happens all the time. Okay, I would like to know.
We got some questions, some hands raised on Zoom.
Sure.
Wait and let Justin finish his presentation and then take the questions on Zoom.
Yeah. And okay, so sorry, I think I got a little off topic.
I put in the chat to tell them that we address those questions afterwards.
Okay. So the thing about the hearing test and background noise, Quicksyn is a good test. It's not really necessary. So I'll put it this way. The basic test where you hear the tones and you press the button and a few other variations of that should take about 10, 15 minutes. That's all you need. Can you do word recognition where they read a word and then you repeat the word? Yes. Does it help fitting hearing aid? No. Okay. What it does is it tells us if you're having processing issues. So it tells us if you, at what level we have to turn the volume up for you to hear things clearly. Some people can't clearly distinguish words even at really high volumes. And it's not because they're not hearing, it's because their brain isn't processing. So some of the tests we do, like speech and noise or word recognition, it helps us get a better overview of the client, but it doesn't necessarily change our fitting process. Because even if you're not hearing things or processing information properly in your brain, you still need to hear it first in order to even process it to begin with. So the hearing loss is like a gatekeeper to your brain. And the more sound you expose it to at proper levels, of course, the better your brain is equipped to process information and sound. So to answer this question, it's not a bad test. It's not usually necessary. So it's kind of a neutral. Even if it was initially 10 years ago and one has had somewhat significant hearing loss since, should it be done again? So this is relating to the speech and noise, I think. Hearing tests should be done. You don't need a hearing test every year. A lot of clinics will do that because guess what? How often do you think Medicare allows billing for hearing tests? Exactly once a year. So when you go into a hospital like Palo Alto Medical or a big clinic and they have, they're going to have a billing pipeline. Nothing wrong with that. It's not wrong to have good information about your health. It's just not necessary most of the time. Now, that doesn't hold true if you have change in medication, if you have change in health. So a lot of things that would cause you to get a hearing test prematurely to the average, we recommend about once every 2 years unless needed. So again, if you haven't been in for a year and then you notice the hearing aids aren't working properly, we check them out, we clean them, they're working properly, and you're still having a problem, then yeah, we're going to give you a test, even if we hadn't given you a test or the last one was 6 months ago. So roughly once every 2 years is kind of what you can have in your mind as the sweet spot for test. If you do it once a year, fine. Do it once a year, it's no problem. Just keep copies of all those tests or request copies. That way, if you ever switch, you have a history, and histories do help. They give some inkling of predicting, what types of changes this individual has had over the last 10 years or whatever time period we're talking about. Okay, I would like to know the difference between your mold and other audiologist molds. Ours are better. No, there are. Our ear mold business is strictly business. So we sell to places like Stanford and Palo Alto Medical and Kaiser, as well as a ton of different private clinics. So we have a lot of experience. I own hearing aid centers and I built a lab from the ground up. We have a lot of experience in all areas of hearing loss, prevention of hearing loss, addressing hearing loss, all those things. Our ear molds, our primary concern is quality, turnaround time, and value. Those are our three hot points, meaning that when we're reselling to your audiologists, we're doing it at a competitive price. We're doing it quickly, which is normally it's 3 to 4 weeks. We do it in 5 days. It's very important for people to get their hearing aids quicker than 3-4 weeks just because they're waiting on one part to be produced. And we do it with the highest qualities. So our ear molds, I didn't bring any today because this is more about hearing loss and hearing aids. But our ear molds are the best by far. And there are about 4 or 5 national ear mold companies. Westone, Starkey Hearing has a great ear mold lab, TLS Sound Labs, MTech, and Microsonic. Those are basically the top producers in the country. And most of them are equivalent to us, but at 3 weeks time, 4 weeks time. So most of their qualities are going to be just as good. So wherever your audiologist ordered your ear mold, it's probably fine. And if it's not, tell them, and they can go back to that factory and get it remade. Real ear measurement, that's going to be the same anywhere. I think that's what this is asking is what's the difference between the molds and the REM. REM is objective. if you get tested with REM 10 different times, it should yield roughly the same results. There'd be little variances based on the room you're in, the acoustics, things like that. But in general, it should be the same. So anywhere you get real ear measurement done, it's going to be fairly accurate. Yeah, sure.
The captions have stopped.
Oh,
They're frozen. Is
and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the beginning.
can I be heard?
That has, I think it's outside of the caption view. So. There we go.
Oh.
So Tony Allred's who you're going to be seeing in the Pleasant Hill office. If you guys go there. Also, our emails are online. Our website's listeningstack.com. Cards up here, information up here. So feel free to reach out to us, emails, phone calls, whatever works for you. And thank you so much for all the time.